1959, 9 young tourists died in mysterious circumstances in the Ural Mountains. Their bodies were found several kilometers away from the tent, which they left in a hurry without dressing and taking anything with them. Some bodies had strange injuries, such as missing eyes, tongue, or skin, and some clothes were contaminated with radiation. Over the years, many conspiracy theories have arisen around this tragedy, trying to explain what happened to the climbers.
The Dyatlov Pass incident, one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century, took place in the remote corners of the Ural Mountains, a harsh and inaccessible terrain located in the Soviet Union at the time. A group led by Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student at the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Sverdlovsk, set out for it. Dyatlov was an experienced hiker and leader, known for meticulous planning and leadership skills. He gathered a group of enthusiasts for an ambitious trek to the summit of Otorten, a challenging peak in the northern Urals. The group consisted of 8 men and 2 women, all experienced hikers and members of the university's tourist and skiing club. They embarked on their expedition on January 23, 1959, equipped with provisions, camping gear, and warm clothing suitable for the harsh winter conditions of the region. Only one of them survived. Yuri Yudin kept his life because, due to illness, he left the expedition and did not embark on their final journey with the group. Their journey proceeded according to plan until January 31st, when they reached the edge of the high mountain area known today as Dyatlov Pass. Due to worsening weather conditions and approaching darkness, the group made the fatal decision to set up camp on the slopes of a mountain called Kholat Syakhl, or Mountain of the Dead in the indigenous Mansi language. This turned out to be their last night alive. The events that took place in the following hours and days remained shrouded in mystery. On February 26th, when the group did not return as planned, search teams were dispatched to find them. What they discovered puzzled investigators and initiated decades of speculation and conspiracy theories. Search parties found the abandoned campsite of the group on the slopes of Kholat Syakhl. The tent, torn from the inside, was abandoned, and all the group's belongings remained inside, including clothing, food, and equipment. Footprints led from the tent down the slope toward the edge of a nearby forest. As the search continued, the bodies of the hikers were discovered scattered across the landscape, some even kilometers from the campsite. The sight was grim and enigmatic. Some of the hikers were found only in their underwear, despite sub-zero temperatures. Others suffered serious injuries, including skull fractures and broken ribs, but without external signs of injury. The tongue of one of the victims was missing, adding a macabre dimension to the discovery. Autopsies conducted on the bodies revealed that the cause of death for most of the hikers was hypothermia, caused by exposure to the elements. However, the circumstances of their deaths left more questions than answers. How did experienced hikers, aware of the dangers of the wilderness, come to such a tragic end? And what could explain the strange injuries and behavior of some of the victims? The Dyatlov Pass incident has since become the subject of intense speculation and debate. Many theories have been proposed to explain the events of that fateful night, ranging from natural phenomena such as avalanches or hypothermia, induced psychosis, to more outlandish explanations involving military tests or encounters with extraterrestrial beings. One of the most popular and controversial hypotheses explaining the deaths of the Dyatlov group is the involvement of the Soviet military in secret weapon tests or military experiments. According to this theory, the hikers could have been victims or witnesses of military activity taking place near their camp. Possible scenarios include missile or nuclear weapon testing, experiments with infrasound, or simply military interference. Some researchers suggest that the hikers could have been hit by radiation, shock waves, or fragments from the explosion of a rocket or bomb. This could explain the high levels of radiation on some of the victims' bodies and clothing, as well as the strange injuries such as missing eyes, tongue, or skin. Additionally, some witnesses claim to have seen strange lights and flying objects over the Urals, which could have been related to weapons testing. One of the recovered photos from the victim's cameras shows a bright spot in the sky, which could have been a missile or explosion. Another hypothesis suggests that the hikers could have been subjected to infrasound, low-frequency sounds inaudible to the human ear, but capable of inducing strong emotional and physiological reactions. Infrasound could have been generated by air vortices around the Koletsiakl mountain or by secret military devices. Infrasound could have caused the hikers to experience fear, panic, hallucinations, headaches, nausea, vomiting, balance disturbances, and even death. This could explain why the hikers left the tent in a hurry, without dressing properly or taking anything with them, and why some of them had skull or chest injuries. Another hypothesis suggests that the hikers could have been attacked, arrested, or forced into silence by Soviet soldiers patrolling the area or conducting operations there. It is possible that the hikers accidentally stumbled upon something they should not have seen or were mistaken for spies or intruders. This could explain why some bodies had signs of a strong impact or bite marks, as well as why some documents related to the case were classified or destroyed by the authorities. The conspiracy theory of military involvement in the Dyatlov Pass tragedy is very intriguing, but there is no incontrovertible evidence for it. Many of its arguments are based on conjecture, speculation, or unconfirmed testimonies. There is also no clear explanation of the purpose and significance of such military tests or experiments, nor why they were not disclosed after the fall of the USSR. Therefore, this theory remains one of many possible hypotheses attempting to unravel the mystery of the Dyatlov Pass. Another hypothesis attempting to explain the deaths of the 9 hikers at Dyatlov Pass involves the involvement of the local Mansi people who inhabited the northern Ural region. According to this theory, the hikers could have been attacked by the Mansi, who perceived them as intruders or a threat to their culture and religion. Possible scenarios include trespassing on sacred grounds, conflicts over resources, or misunderstandings fueled by irrational fear. Some researchers suggest that the hikers may have unknowingly entered territory considered sacred or forbidden by the Mansi. For example, Mount Otorten, whose Mansi name translates to "don't go there," could have been a place of worship or sacrifice for gods and spirits. The Mansi might have felt offended or alarmed by the presence of strangers on their land and decided to seek revenge. This could explain why some bodies showed signs of strong impact or bites, as well as why some clothing was torn or stained with blood. Another hypothesis suggests that the hikers may have been attacked by the Mansi, who competed with them for resources such as wood, water, game, or fish. The Mansi lived in small settlements, gathering together their kin. They lived a life similar to primitive tribes and functioned as if time had stopped many centuries ago. Like their ancestors, they herded reindeer and subsisted on their meat. They engaged in fishing and hunting. They preserved old traditions and were decidedly closed off to modern technological advances or attractions of the contemporary world. The hikers may have encroached upon their hunting or fishing territory, or simply been perceived as encroaching upon their resources. This could explain why some bodies were missing eyes, tongue, or skin, which could have been a form of mutilation or a deterrent to other intruders. Yet another hypothesis posits that the hikers may have been attacked by the Mansi, who were afraid of them or did not understand their intentions. The Mansi were a closed and distrustful people toward strangers, especially Russians, who often exploited or persecuted them. The Mansi practiced a polytheistic and anthropomorphic religion, assuming coexistence on Earth of the material world of humans and the metaphysical world, consisting of gods, taiga spirits, animal souls, and sacred mountains inhabited by deities. Gods were presented with wooden statues and temples, and offerings of plants and hunted animals were made. The hikers may have been seen as spies, thieves, enemies, or even demons who wanted to destroy their world. This could explain why the hikers left the tent in a hurry, without dressing properly or taking anything with them, and why some of them had skull or chest injuries. Another theory related to the Mansi people suggests that the hikers may have eaten or drunk tea made from Jimson weed, affecting their behavior and causing their deaths. Another version of this theory suggests that it was the Mansi, the local people inhabiting the Ural Mountains, who may have put smoking Jimson weed into the tourists' tent to poison or scare them away. The Mansi were a closed and distrustful people towards strangers, and they also practiced a polytheistic religion in which Jimson weed had magical significance. Jimson weed, Datura stramonium, is a plant with strong hallucinogenic and toxic properties that grows in the Ural Mountains. Jimson weed contains alkaloids such as scopolamine, atropine, and hyoscyamine, which affect the nervous system, causing humans and animals to experience symptoms such as fear, disorientation, aggression, euphoria, hallucinations, visual disturbances, dry mouth, tachycardia, fever, convulsions, and even death. Jimson weed was used by some tribes and cultures as a medicine, poison, aphrodisiac, or ritual substance. It is possible that the Mansi considered the hikers as intruders or a threat to their culture and religion, and decided to seek revenge or defend themselves. The smoking Jimson weed could have emitted hallucinogenic substances that penetrated into the tent and affected the hikers, causing them to experience fear, panic, hallucinations, or madness. This could explain why the hikers left the tent in a hurry without dressing properly or taking anything with them, and why some of them had strange injuries, such as missing eyes, tongue, or skin. However, there is no evidence for this, and this theory is criticized for ignoring other possible factors such as weather conditions, avalanches, hypothermia, or stress. It is also not known whether Jimson weed grows in such conditions, and at that time of year, whether the Mansi knew its properties, and whether they had a motive or opportunity to use it against the hikers. Therefore, this theory remains one of many possible hypotheses attempting to explain the mystery of Dyatlov Pass. The conspiracy theory of an attack by the Mansi people on the Dyatlov group is very interesting, but there is no credible evidence for it. Many of its arguments are based on stereotypes, prejudices, or historical and cultural inaccuracies. There are also no witnesses, documents, or material evidence to corroborate such a version of events. Therefore, this theory remains one of many possible hypotheses, attempting to unravel the mystery of Dyatlov Pass. Additional theories are linked to secret Soviet nuclear projects. It's a surprising coincidence that 3 members of the Dyatlov expedition were associated with the Majak atomic facility, located near the town of Kishtim in the Chelyabinsk Oblast. They were Rustem Slobodin, an engineer and graduate of the Faculty of Mechanics, employed at the Majak atomic facility; Nikolai Thibault Brignoles, a construction engineer, employed at the Majak atomic facility; and Georgy Yuri Krivonishenko, an engineer and graduate of the Faculty of Construction, employed at the Majak atomic facility. Interestingly, Georgy participated in the cleanup efforts following the so-called Kishtim disaster, one of the 3 largest nuclear disasters in history, at that time, of course, concealed by the Soviet authorities. The Majak atomic facility was one of the first and largest centers for nuclear weapons production in the USSR. It was located in a secret military zone, not marked on maps. The facility was involved in uranium, plutonium, and other fissile material enrichment, as well as the production of atomic and thermonuclear bombs. The facility was also the site of many accidents and incidents that caused environmental contamination and radiation exposure to people. The largest of these was the Kishtim disaster, which occurred on September 29, 1957, when a tank containing radioactive waste exploded. It was the 3rd largest nuclear disaster in history, after Chernobyl and Fukushima. It's unknown whether working at the Majak atomic facility had any connection to the Dyatlov Pass tragedy. Some researchers suggest that the hikers may have been victims of secret weapon tests or military experiments conducted nearby, pointing to the high levels of radiation found on some of the victims' bodies and clothing. Others argue that these traces are related to the work performed by some of the expedition participants. Is it possible that these engineers simply knew too much about the Soviet nuclear program? This leads to further theories concerning the Cold War, espionage, and intelligence rivalry between superpowers. These secrets are deepened by the enigmatic figure of one of the expedition members, Alexander Zolotaryov. At the center of another theory concerning the mysterious tragedy is the most enigmatic participant of the expedition, Siemyon. He introduced himself to the expedition participants as Alexander Zolotaryov, a mountain guide. However, the truth was more convoluted. His real name was Semyon Alexeyevich Zolotaryov. He was not part of the Dyatlov group's circle of friends. Semyon, older than the other participants, was a Soviet soldier, a veteran. He fought on the front lines of World War II. Upon returning from the war, he had no documents and urgently needed them to complete his student records at the Institute of Physical Culture in Minsk and join the expedition. Therefore, the university director, under extraordinary circumstances, issued him an identity card. This document, issued in blatant violation of the law, became the key to Semyon Zolotaryov's mystery. The expedition participants' journals contain a note. We have an instructor from the tourist base with us, Alexander Alexeyevich Zolotaryov. He knows a lot of new songs. Semyon was a stranger, but eventually they took him along. Much indicates that Dyatlov received such an order and simply could not refuse. If the expedition were to proceed, it could only be with Semyon. It was a decision that had tragic consequences. Semyon perished along with the other expedition participants. He likely perished. What happened there? Nobody knows. Traces indicated panic, terror, and desperation. Semyon Zolotaryov, the guide who never existed, became part of this enigmatic story. Did he know the answer to what really happened at Dyatlov Pass? Was his mysterious presence the key to solving the mystery? During a lengthy investigation conducted by the authorities, the expedition participants' bodies were exhumed. New controversies arose. DNA tests revealed that Semyon Zolotaryov's remains did not belong to him. The grave contained the body of a completely different person. This discovery adds another layer of mystery to this already deeply convoluted, enigmatic story. Did the guide, who never existed, take the secret of the Dyatlov Pass tragedy with him? This question remains unanswered. In addition to these mysterious and terrifying theories, many researchers have tried to find explanations that are more rational and easier to accept. Some researchers have suggested that katabatic winds and slab avalanche played a role in the Dyatlov Pass tragedy. Katabatic winds are cold, dense winds that flow downhill from a high elevation to a lower one. They are common in mountainous regions, especially in winter, and can reach speeds of up to 124 miles per hour. A slab avalanche is a specific type of avalanche in which the entire layer of snow on a slope slides down as one large mass. This phenomenon is difficult to predict and can be deadly for those in its path. According to this theory, the hikers pitched their tent on a slope that was prone to avalanches and cut a hole in the snow to make it more stable. However, this also weakened the snow layer and made it more susceptible to sliding. The katabatic winds, which were induced by an Arctic cold front, drifted more snow onto the slope, creating an extra load that eventually triggered a slab avalanche. The avalanche hit the tent with such force that it caused severe injuries to some of the hikers, such as skull and chest fractures. The hikers panicked and cut their way out of the tent, leaving behind most of their clothes and belongings. They tried to escape to a nearby forest, but succumbed to hypothermia and exposure in the freezing temperatures and strong winds. This theory is supported by computer simulations and experiments that recreated the conditions of the Dyatlov Pass incident. The researchers claim that their model can explain most of the puzzling aspects of the case, such as the unusual injuries, the lack of external signs of an avalanche, and the strange behavior of the hikers. However, this theory is not universally accepted, and some critics have pointed out its limitations and inconsistencies. For example, some argue that the slope angle was too low for an avalanche to occur, that the injuries were too severe for a small avalanche, that the hikers would have heard the avalanche coming and had time to react, and that the katabatic winds were not strong enough to cause significant snowdrift. The mystery of the Dyatlov Pass incident remains unresolved. It will likely never be definitively solved. Therefore, the case continues to captivate the public imagination, inspiring countless books, documentaries, and films, each offering its own interpretation of the events that took place on that remote mountain over 60 years ago. And you, what do you believe? Please write in the comments under the video which solution to this dark mystery convinces you the most.